Hi everyone, welcome back for week 2 of Admiration. Last week we looked at Cadbury Cream Egg in the UK, and this week we're going to look at a Dr. Pepper campaign in the US. For anyone who didn't join us last week, just a quick introduction. I'm Kim Malcolm and I look after our advertising solutions here at Zappi, and I'm joined by Isa.
And I'm Isa Franzini, and I'm an insights manager at Zappi.
Great. And basically, every single week, what we do is we put a spotlight on a really great campaign or ad that we've seen go live in recent times and had a little look at it in terms of how is it received by consumers, what can we learn from it, and what might we want to reflect on that we could take for our brand. So actually, it's probably the best job you could have, looking at great ads and working out why it is that they're great. So with that, let's take a look at Dr. Pepper. And a bit of context, probably lots of people know this, but maybe people outside of the US might be slightly less aware. It's actually the oldest soda brand that exists in the US. It's always communicated pretty consistently and effectively over the years. And it's always had this kind of brand positioning around these mysterious 23 flavors, which you can actually see on one of those particular packs. We don't know exactly what that blend is, but it's a blend that makes it totally unique. And it's brought a lot of character with it. So shall we move forward and have a look at the video and socials content, Isa?
Yeah, let's watch the video first, so I'll play that.
Hey man, you like Dr. Pepper?
And its unique blend of 23 flavors.
It's a pepper thing.
Great. Well, it certainly made me smile. Let's see what it did for everyone else. And the social that came with it as well, is it in keeping with the video ad?
Yeah, so the whole point of the video is finishing it with the slogan of "It's a Pepper thing," and they've taken that to other social channels. So they've activated on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So you can see some of their Instagram posts here. They make it really playful, so almost playing it as if one of their consumers is messaging them on Twitter and saying, for example, I would literally date Dr. Pepper, and they make it playful, like, this could be us, Michael, with a caption of getting into a relationship with a can of Dr. Pepper, it's a pepper thing. Getting a tattoo of it's a pepper thing, and again, it's a pepper thing on their Instagram. A couple of like playful tweets or something like favorite color maroon, favorite number 23, alluding to those 23 ingredients that no one knows exactly what they are. Favorite quote, it's a pepper thing. And then a bit of like other playful stuff on Facebook with a family that essentially names their kids based on Dr. Pepper, and it's a pepper thing to do that. So it all ties together very well in terms of that particular slogan that the campaign is based on.
It's a really nice example, and we'll come on to see what consumers think, but it's a really nice example of, like, here everyone understands their brand and the message, and they're rallying behind the slogan, and it means that they can execute the campaign just as you would want to be able to do in the perfect way that works for all of those different channels, but comes back holistically to support the same kind of brand values and the same humor, which is really nice to see. So shall we have a look at what consumers do think about the video ad, which is what we've looked at?
Yeah, let's do that. So let's move on to the platform.
Great. So we're just getting a kind of snapshot of some of the key results here, and we'll go into them in a bit more detail. But I guess the first thing is, we said, how do consumers respond to it? And it's very clear that consumers responded to it really, really well. There's a lot of green on there. And before we dive into it, a reminder, we have our sales impact score, which is basically how effective the ad is likely to be in driving short-term sales effects, so validated outcomes from market mix modeling. And we have the brand impact score, which is more about the potential of the ad to drive brand equity and therefore influence longer term sales into the future. And it looks like it's pretty good on both, right, Isa?
Yeah, definitely. I think particularly on the sales impact, you can see how strong the purchase uplift is versus a norm. That's huge. And the unaided brand recall that plays into both metrics is also incredibly high when we compare it to the rest of the ads that we tested in the US. Stuff like uniqueness of brand impressions plays also into the fact that the ad is extremely well branded, and the level of distinctiveness there, making the brand be completely different to other soft drinks brands, but also just the ad being quite unique on its own as well when compared to others.
Yeah, and that makes sense because often, if you do say like in a like today's world, you can't always have something that actually makes your brand truly unique. Now, they obviously clearly do have both in terms of the vibe of the brand as well as the 23 flavors. But even if you've got a distinctive ad, it often rubs back onto the brand in terms of making it feel that bit more distinctive as well, which is great. My other reflection here is we talk about different ways to brand an ad, right? To make sure that the brand gets credit.
Yeah.
And there's loads of different ways of doing that. But I think what's really clever here is that it kind of does all of the things. And often, you can just do one of them and do quite well, but it fits with the brand. The whole story fits around it. It's pretty unique to the brand. No one else could have that brand vibe in terms of how Dr. Pepper shows up, the 23 flavors, but also the focus on the brand within the story. So, it's the trigger of the relationship and the connection between, when they're talking about Dr. Pepper. So it's really the hero of the story in terms of bringing people together and them connecting and spending time together. So, and of course, it's got their distinctive assets in terms of, the can and the colors as well as the kind of vibe. So it's a really great example of, not all brands are able in every ad to use all of those different, I guess we'll call them mechanics to get a strong branding. But in this case, they've kind of got it all. And I guess that's what we're seeing reflected in that incredibly high branding score that we've got there.
Definitely.
Nice. Okay, so overall, a really, really great ad that can drive the short and the long term. We can see we are doing well on emotion as well. It doesn't look amazing, right? Because we're comparing it to all the green everywhere else. But it still looks like it's doing pretty well. Can we dive a little bit more into that emotion and what it is that people feel?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's probably worth us going into the overall emotion chart and seeing the strongest emotions felt throughout. So going into here. But there you go. I mean, when it comes to love, it's very much on par with the norm. Like slightly under, but it's usually likes are traded off versus how strongly you feel towards something. If there's a lot of laughter, if the love reaction is at least on norm or above, you'll see a bit of downfall on the likes just because there's a bit more of like an extreme level of reaction versus a more neutral overall kind of just like happiness towards it. But yeah, the laughter is significantly above the norm, and we can see how that differs versus different types of people as well.
Oh, so I tell you what's really interesting for me here. There is as many people as we'd expect that love it. And it's basically like the way that the story's been brought to life is humorous. So people are choosing laughter over like, but all really positive emotions, which is great. So we'll have a look at different age groups as well.
Yeah, so we can look at our configuration here. We've got all respondents selected, but we can actually narrow down to different groups of people. We actually saw that it was seen as most humorous for the youngest guys. So if we look at adults under 25, you see how much that laughter reaction spikes versus the norm and versus the norm for their age group as well.
Yeah, and I guess that's really important, right? Because we do get younger people tending to, have different kinds of humor. But what's
Yeah.
really important is when we look at the profiles here, we're not comparing young people to everyone else. What we're doing is saying, how do adults under 25 for this ad compare to adults under 25 for other ads? So is this truly funnier than other ads that are out there? Oh my goodness, it definitely is.
So the laughter spikes massively. You can see even the norm goes up. The norm that we were seeing for all respondents was 7%. And when we look at the under 25s, that norm goes up. They typically do tend to find things funnier in general. But you can see how much funnier they found this ad versus everything else that we've tested in the US. And then you can see how that's impacted other measures as well, and just the overall emotion score and how that norm is slightly higher as well versus the total respondent. But we can see as soon as we start kind of like going into including older age groups in there, say let's go to all the way up to adults up to 45. But yeah, you'll see how then that laughter reaction starts to go down a little bit. So now we're down to 22. If we remember back to our all respondents, that was around the 18% mark. As soon as we start including the older age groups, that starts to go down.
What I really liked about the humor, and when I was having a look even at the verbatims, it's like there was potential, I guess, for the scene, where he opens the can and the Dr. Pepper goes all over his face. There's potential for that to kind of not be quite as inclusive and be a bit more upsetting in some way. But actually the way it's done is beautiful, because he's happy to get his can of Dr. Pepper and he just finds it funny. So the joke is with him and he's part of the joke. People aren't laughing at him. So it's like a really nice inclusive kind of humor as well.
Yeah, I mean, and even if we quickly have a look at where the spikes of laughter happened in the ad, that moment in particular like really drove the laughter amongst the audience. And like you said, the fact that the guy reacts well to the prank,
Yeah,
I think makes it very much like a positive moment in the ad. You see it's that
yeah,
little spike there, kind of play
man.
the ad with that sound and get it up to that moment of there it is, guy being splashed, and that's where we've just seen the kind of spike that goes on all the way to him kind of reacting well to it. And
yeah.
really comes through when the brand slogan and the kind of like one of a kind taste, one of a kind connection, it's a pepper thing comes through, which again is typical when the brand, when the true branding comes out, love is really present in the reactions.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So overall, what we've seen is a distinctive and fun storyline that people are laughing with, that has a really strong connection to the brand. The brand's kind of the hero and at the center of it all. You also referenced when we were looking at that first chart that it had a really good ability to make people feel more positive about the brand, reinforce good associations, and drive that purchase uplift. Shall we look at that a little bit more closely?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can see in our purchase uplift chart how much more likely people were to choose Dr. Pepper as the carbonated soft drink that they were going to buy the next time they were considering buying sodas in the US versus other brands. So we asked this question pre-watching the ad and post-watching the ad. So you can see kind of the before exposure to the ad, the level of willingness people to buy Dr. Pepper versus other brands like Pepsi, Coke, Mountain Dew. And you can see that Dr. Pepper is pretty on par with the likes of Coca-Cola, the likes of Sprite, Mountain Dew. After seeing that ad, that spikes massively all the way up to
Huge.
41. So yeah, it's really effective in making people want to buy the brand, making people want to drink Dr. Pepper, which is
Yeah. That makes complete sense. And then, we'll just give a little bit more detail about how this one's done. So we don't just like show people the ad and ask this. What we're actually doing is asking people about their preferences for brands. Then what we do is we show them some programming if it's a TV ad. And then in the middle of the programming, they see 3 ads as part of a reel. And then after they've seen that, so it's not disguised, but it's within context, and they could be remembering any of 3 different ads that obviously we flip around. And then after that, they have clearly noticed the ad and it's made them feel good about Dr. Pepper, so that they're more likely to try it. And all of this before we've actually forced an exposure on them of the ad in full. So I guess a big well done there to Dr. Pepper, because that's a pretty huge uplift we've got there.
Yeah.
Why do we think it is that they've got the uplift? We've talked a little bit about the emotional side. Is there anything functional as well, like the 23 flavors, or what are the kind of associations people are getting?
Yeah, I mean, they make it really clear that the brand has the 23 unique flavors. It makes the ad makes it really clear that the brand tastes great as well, and it makes people want to drink it. So we can look at the performance against category attributes, and we know that taste is an absolute must when it comes to soft drinks and sodas in particular. So we can see how people received the ad in terms of those key drivers in the category, things like whether it's refreshing, whether it tastes great, whether kind of it's a treat type of product. We can select the ones that we feel like are most relevant.
You're not gonna drive all category entry points with one ad, so it's really great to zoom in on the ones that might help it to come to mind at some of those key moments, for sure.
Yeah.
And as you said, taste, refreshment, they're all critical. I guess lifting your mood, like a more emotional one, which probably is quite important for this ad as well.
Yeah, we can see that is great tasting
Wow.
comes out as the most picked attribute there for the ad, and significantly above the norm for that attribute as well, which is huge. Lifts your mood is a massive one. We've obviously talked about how the ad kind of makes you feel good. It's got that fun, light-hearted tone to it, so it's definitely coming through. Has a variety of flavors, I guess could be interpreted as it's talking about the 23 unique blend of ingredients, but also in that end shot, we do see the array of different flavors that Dr. Pepper has to offer in terms of their like strawberries and cream version, their cherry version, and so on. So I guess it's hard to pinpoint what exactly the audience interpreted by that, but it's good that that's coming through. Helps
Yeah.
you celebrate, it helps you express yourself, all quite above the norm, which is great for the ad as well.
Yeah, I really love that they've done a kind of functional thing that they have to do for the category. Like, you have to believe it's going to taste great, otherwise why would you have it? But also the lift your mood, that whole part of being inclusive. Shall we jump forward and have a look at the likes that we've got from the particular ad? I'm thinking that might be quite a good place to go, given we've focused on the mood there.
Yeah. So we've got
Right,
the likes up, and we can see a lot of the likes are attributed to the emotional response. So how funny the ad was, a sense of togetherness, just general kind of happiness and positivity that it elicits. But then also about how it was delivered. So the characters, the scenario in general, the music was really appreciated. I think everyone loved a bit of Rick Astley and how it had a
Who
very
doesn't?
vintage, old type feel, nostalgic feel to it. It did feel like an old school Dr. Pepper ad when it was still very current and relevant today. But we can have a look at some of the stuff that people were saying. So it's playful and funny. I thought it brought teenagers and adults together in a humorous way, and to not take life too seriously sometimes, to appreciate the small things and enjoy the things that we have access to. So that really showcases how the inclusivity of the ad and how well it's portraying the brand bringing people together. We can have a look at, to say, I thought the ad was funny, trying to be meaningful by showing opposite people, different age, race, and style coming together for the love of Dr. Pepper. It was appealing. Some more on the characters. I liked when the guy opened the Dr. Pepper, it fizzed all over him and he laughed about it when the others were watching. I also liked the message that it's one of a kind drink and one of a kind connection. So again, bringing in that particularly humorous part of the ad, but also the key message that it was portraying, that it's obviously a very unique drink that brings people together in a very unique way as well. I like the music and the younger generation of people having good and healthy fun. Again, that's like a shout out to the song really bringing the ad together and the whole vibe of it.
It's quite incredible actually to see people spontaneously talking in this way, and like the sense of togetherness and the real inclusivity. Because in a funny way, they've got, it's like Dr. Pepper, it's almost a bit cult-like with its like Dr. Pepper world. Like when you enter that world, it's all vibrant and fun and people feel a certain way. And yeah, it's very inclusive. It's a cult that anyone can choose to join, and when you join it, you have a better time and things are more fun. And I think particularly in today's society, what's really lovely here is society is very divided. We're being pushed like, are you this or are you that? Are you young or are you old? Are you this or are you that? And actually, this is like, it doesn't matter who you are. You can come and inhabit this Dr. Pepper world, and you're all welcome here, and it allows a connection, and it's something that can bring people together rather than push them apart. And I think that's what we're seeing reflected here in that kind of the kind of togetherness, you know. And I think we remember someone talking about it being warm and inspiring as well. And people have talked a lot about watching older and younger and different cultures all coming together and having a laugh with Dr. Pepper. I personally also like the kind of positive portrayal. We talked about this when we talked at Christmas about the Amazon ad. Now, obviously, the ladies in the Amazon ad who were going sledging were a lot older than the portrayal in this ad, but nonetheless, I think it's really nice to portray young people as being inclusive and welcoming of all generations, and older people who want to join in and still have a vibrance and fun, and they're off skateboarding. Like, I think the way that it's all shown, we too often don't see positive portrayal of all sorts of different people in society in ads, and I think this one does it really well.
Yeah, and just how different they were as well. So like obviously the skaters were cool, edgy, kind of Gen Z, or like a Gen Z crew that were skateboarding, and the guy was an IT worker who loved his e-scooter, couldn't be further apart from the skateboarding situation. And that just made it even more impactful, that sense of bringing people together who were completely from different worlds, I guess.
Yeah, it's perfect. Shall we move on then to our reflections, and what we can perhaps take out of this for other advertisers?
Yeah.
So one of the things I guess that we reflected on is like a real question: how well defined is your actual brand identity? Because the more that you've got that clear brand identity, the more that you understand what that brand stands for, what it means to people in their lives. Obviously, it gives you a lot more space to creatively tell stories around that. And we were actually looking back at an old Dr. Pepper ad, right? It's like, this is a totally new campaign and a new slogan. And yet there's such a clear brand identity that even going back, what decades for the ad we're about to look at, is there?
Oh yeah, I mean, this was in the 70s. I don't think you were even born, Kim, which is
Oof. Well, yeah, I came in right at the end of that decade. Not that I want to admit that to anyone, but yes, spot on. So yeah, the fact that they've, you know, we'll have a look at the ad, but it's still that idea of, I guess, inclusion and a fun Dr. Pepper world almost. Should we take a look at it?
Yeah.
I drink Dr. Pepper and I'm proud. I'm part of an original crowd. And if you look around these days, there seems to be a Dr. Pepper craze. I'm a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper, we're a pepper. Wouldn't you like to be a pepper too? I'm a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper. If you drink Dr. Pepper, you're a pepper too. Be a pepper, drink Dr. Pepper. Be a pepper, drink.
I might like to be a pepper and join that Dr. Pepper crew, whether it's today's version of that crew or the 70s version of that crew.
Well, it's really powerful because even on the social media activation that they've been doing on It's a Pepper thing, if you scroll through the comments and you see kind of all the people who absolutely love Dr. Pepper, you see quite a bunch of them referencing this. And it's obviously a very old campaign that's stuck around and has even impacted kind of the younger generation. If you love Dr. Pepper, you're almost like you're aware of this campaign somehow. So you see comments of the little jingle of I'm a pepper, he's a pepper, be a pepper too kind of thing, which is just a testament of how people are able to spontaneously connect both without necessarily being prompted to do so.
Yeah, which is again, it just shows that the kind of identity, the vibe, the inclusivity, all of those, inhabiting their own Dr. Pepper world is worked then and it works now. It's also a brilliant reminder, isn't it, that really great ads stick with you for decades. I always embarrass my kids because I can still sing theme tunes from 80s ads. I won't do it again here. I've probably done it once too often in my life. But they really stick with you, the really great ones, and create that into the future.
Yeah.
The other thing that made us think about is another brand. When you really think about, if you truly understand your brand identity and you understand what your brand means to people in their lives, obviously that's a really great insight to build from. And if we just look at the next slide, it was making us think of the McDonald's Archers campaign, because what this campaign did, and what was so magical about it, is it was grounded in that insight of what McDonald's means to people. And it wasn't about the consumption moment. What they unpacked was really the idea that it was the suggestion and the anticipation of a McDonald's, the nod, the wink, in this case they're represented as the Archers, but that suggestion that you might want to go for a McDonald's, that is the real emotional moment, and that it was globally recognized, and that they could really bring this to life in this Archers campaign, which we're showing here, which was adapted to work, I think, across about 35 markets. We've got the kind of UK US edit here. We've got obviously a version from the Middle East as well that we're showing. But it's really clever, and a bit like the Dr. Pepper stuff. It's like you understand what your brand is and what it means to people, and therefore you've got like that kind of creative license to bring it to life in different ways. So I guess we'd leave you with a reflection of how clear is your brand identity? Do you understand the role that you play in people's lives, and can you therefore have all of these wonderful campaigns which are very fresh and even quite different from one another and relevant to the era that they live within, and yet can still bring your brand to life in a coherent, consistent way over the years that really helps your brand to have that kind of powerful association and come to mind when it really matters. Any further builds, Isa, before we close?
I don't think so. I think you summarized it amazingly.
Brilliant. Thank you, Isa. Thanks for this week. And we'll be back with another ad next week. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.